Hello, good night. Welcome to Legalize this 27th day of July, 2025. Welcome to our final session in this first season for 2025. Before we start, though, I just want to recognize the sponsors of this program, Jail Professional Solutions, Inc., Gem FM carrying this program on FM radio out of Canada, and Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, GTAU.
Attention all workers, your health and safety at work are critical. At Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, we are dedicated to ensuring you have a safe and secure work environment. If you encounter unsafe conditions or are involved in an accident, take immediate actions. Report it to the company, your shop steward, and make sure it reaches your union. Your health and safety is a priority, and a strong union means a strong voice for your rights. Don't wait. Address concerns right away and protect your well-being. For a safer workplace and a better quality of life, stand with the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. Together, we can create a safer, healthier work environment for everyone.
So tonight we are looking at the issue of emancipation, of course, emancipation from slavery. And we in these parts will soon be marking 187 years since the abolition of slavery, 192 years since the proclamation was announced. We'll also look at the issue of reparations, being reparations for the centuries of slavery, enslavement of our ancestors, and we will look at the issue of the revocation of the oath to the king and swearing allegiance to Grenada, given the historic amendment to the Grenadian Constitution just in the last few days, and which is expected to take effect at midnight on Emancipation Day. So good night to our guests. Ladies first, Sister Ideisha Jackson, Brother Jomo Thomas, Jomo Sanga Thomas, who is no stranger to this program, and Brother Martin Felix, who is making his debut on this program. And if I may just ask Aisha, if you can just tell us a few things about yourself as part of your introductory remarks.
Well, as you said, my name is Angela Ideisha Jackson. I'm firstly a Rastafarian woman, a mother, a daughter, a sister. Persons call me a social activist, but I'm just being me, doing what sometimes I think is necessary for the general upliftment of my Black people, my brothers and sisters. And I'm a patriot. I love my country. I love to see the advancements of my country and advancement in its totality for all peoples across the board. So I'm happy to be here. It's my first time on a program in Grenada. So shout out to all my Grenadian friends. I have quite a few friends who would have studied with me in Cuba. And big them up if they ever listen to the program. And probably should invite them to listen to the program more. All right. So thanks for having me, and hope we have a fruitful discussion.
Thank you. Brother Martin Felix.
Well, thanks for the
Welcome.
thanks for the opportunity. I'm usually listening. I'm usually listening to either Jomo's program or your program, Ewart. and I tend to listen more as my generation moves into its sunset. I listen more and sketch from my sketchbook, so I'm not often in front of the camera. Prefer to sketch, and much of my thought are sketches, and often I will erase, re-sketch if necessary, and I approach those things, cultural production and those kind of spaces of political contestation with sketches, and so not everything is permanent, and so I'm sure there will be things in this conversation that will cause me to change some of my outlines, so lines as it may.
And of course, Brother Felix is an educator, a visual artist. That's what he was speaking about. And he's a co-editor of Big Jump Nation, Caribbean Literary Journal, founded by Caldwell Taylor since 1991. Welcome, Brother Jomo.
Hey,
I don't
I'm
know
glad
that
to
you
be.
need much introduction, but welcome
I'm glad
to
to
you.
be here as normal. Grenadians who know me know that I'm passionately in love with Grenada. I've been to Grenada more than any other country in this world. I've been to Grenada at least 50 times. Going back to the Revolution days. And when you decided to do this program, I thought it was an excellent idea. And I have said that it's always a signal of honor when I'm called on to participate. So here I am, yet again.
Thank you. Sister Ideisha, I want you to travel back in time and connect with our ancestors. And it is now approaching August 1833, and there is a proclamation that soon all the slaves will be freed, although then you learn that it is not immediate, but that there is supposed to be a period of so-called apprenticeship, but that freedom is at the door. And tell me what would it have been like? What's the feeling? What kind of vibes, what kind of emotions you think would have?
Well, I think it would have been an overall sense of mixed emotion, joy, finally regaining what is rightfully ours, our freedom to live and practice our culture, our identity, as every other human being should have that right and privilege. So that would have been a sense of joy of reclaiming what was rightfully ours in the first place. So it isn't even at that point where it was just handed to us. It was a finality to our battles and our struggles for decades, for hundreds of years, that we were finally at that point where we are winning the battle. Well, one battle at least. Anger, anger for all those who would have been lost, crossing the seas during the captivities on the motherland. Anger for all the violations, the rape of our sisters, the massacring and brutality that was meted out to all our brothers, whether via the whip, whether via the cutlass of dismembering the bodies of our brothers and sisters. Somewhat, and I'm speaking as I would have really felt, somewhat hate, you know, and hate for those who would have inflicted those wounds against us. And some semblance of peace to know that we could move forward and try to reclaim our past and build a positive future for those to come. But still, at least knowing that one aspect of our tribulations had ended, but still, we still would have many more battles ahead of us. So that would have been my mixture of emotions on that day or that timing, you know, because as one of our great thinkers here always say, emancipation still coming, right, Jomo? So it
Well,
would definitely be that, you know, at least we crossing one hurdle, but still at this point we still expecting emancipation still to come.
So, Jomo, that's a good introduction.
well, I can't claim it. It's actually Oscar Allen who said that.
I
Oscar
know.
Allen.
I'm just saying because you normally quote it, so that I'm
Yes,
just
yes, yes. I think
yes.
it was so apt that I say it ever so often. But yeah, I agree with Ideisha that I can imagine the kind of emotions that our people went through when they heard that, look, freedom is coming. But in a real sense, our people, as Richard Hart in his classic book, Slaves Who Abolished Slavery, made the point that this was not a gift to us. It was a hard-fought battle. From the time our people resisted the capture on the continent, some of them jumped overboard. Some of our women invoked self-aborted to ensure that the children don't be part of slavery. Hilary Beckles makes the point in Britain's Black Death that the resistance to the enslavement of our people were epic in many, many instances, and that some kingdoms fought serious, long, hard battles to ensure that we're not enslaved. So our people, over from the very moment the Europeans came, Dr. Hilary Beckles told a story, the whole concept of Obia, and he made the point that on the continent, Obia was a minor god, minor water god. But Obia became a big thing and all of its variants in the New World because our people had to go through a long expanse of water, the Atlantic Ocean, to get over to the other side. So the belief in Obia became even more prominent as we crossed over from the continent to another continent, to the Americas. So there's a lot of emotions, I think, on July 31st or the run-up to August 1st. I agree with different people had different emotions, I'm sure. Some people were probably sad that freedom was coming because it was the great unknown. They didn't know what they were going to do. They probably lived in Master's house. They got to eat a little better than the ordinary field slaves. But I think in the main, many of our people, most of our people were very, very ecstatic that slavery was coming to an end. The sheer brutality, the terror, the horror of slavery. Nobody could have wanted to continue in that kind of, but there was an unknown. But as we saw across the Caribbean, and here in St. Vincent as well, the immediacy, the swiftness with which freedom villages were established across these islands. So I think that looking back, it was a great moment. It was a time of battle won, because you see, we need to know that for those persons where the story was carried, there was this struggle between 1791 and 1804, which led to the triumph of the Haitian Revolution. That was the big spark. If we go back and read some of the texts, all of the Europeans were kind of afraid that the Caribbean was going to develop into this huge, another Haiti. Because it must remember that around that time, the Caribbean was said to be the most prized piece of real estate in the world, more prized than North America. And then in 1812, you had the uprising in Jamaica, And then in 1831, you had the uprising in Jamaica. In 1803, we had uprisings in St. Vincent. And across the region, we had those kind of uprisings which convinced the colonial master that they had to give it up because our people were resisting at a level which made the normal enslavement difficult to continue. And what they simply did, they simply freed us up and then carried on with colonialism for another 160 something years. In the case of St. Vincent, 169 years. But I'll stop there.
Brother Felix?
Similar sentiments here. I mean, I definitely would have had mixed emotions likewise. While I would be happy that formal slavery had ended with the Abolition Act of 1833, the Slavery Abolition Act, I would be also aware that it was sort of like semi-slavery at that point, because as was pointed out before by others, that the apprenticeship system began at that point, and we were still really enslaved at that point, to the extent that we were exacted 45 hours per person. That we had to work for free, enslaved, and so enslavement continued at that point. So we still weren't free, and we had moments outside of that 45 hours where we could beat the drum, express ourselves culturally and otherwise, and probably rekindle family and things of the sort. But it was semi freedom, and while this date should be recognized as an important milestone, I think perhaps, as Jomo was sort of like intimating as well, perhaps the point in which the Haitian Revolution began, August 23rd, to me, that would be a more significant, 1791 would be a more significant moment to recognize as a public holiday, although, as I said, August 1st is significant as well. But the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, basically recognized slavery as a crime against humanity and asked for that date to be recognized as a genuine remembrance of the transatlantic slavery and its abolition.
And which date you speak of?
August 23rd. And they've been advocating that since I think since 2008, if my memory serves me well. And the Caribbean governments, 1998, Caribbean governments have not really heeded the UNESCO call. I think it would be really important for us to recognize August 23rd as well, in addition to August 1st.
August 23rd being the assumed or
the recognized beginning of the Haitian Revolution.
Commencement of the Haitian Revolution.
Yes. And it also shows that it demonstrates that we were not granted our freedom. We fought for our freedom. So 1791, the Haitian Revolution broke out. Grenadian played a very significant role in that, Henry Christophe. This is not because he is Grenadian, but just to kind of show that there is regional interconnection. We know that Bookman was from Jamaica and so on. So it wasn't just the Haitian Revolution. And Jomo was pointed out as well that the danger that was realized by the colonialists of recognizing that slavery is becoming like really a hazardous occupation, enslavement, a hazardous occupation, that led as well to efforts to dismantle the slave system. The Grenada Rebellion of 1795, the Fedon Rebellion, which sometimes it's misnamed Fedon Rebellion, but really it was a more generalized rebellion after being initiated by Julian Fedon. It's recognized by historians as the most significant rebellion after the Haitian Revolution. So all of these were influenced by different movements and inspired further steps towards abolition. Again, I want to point out the importance of Henri Christophe in terms of the American theater for independence. Henri Christophe was part of a group of French Caribbean fighters who fought valiantly in Savannah, Georgia, for the freedom of the United States, or for American independence in 1779. Although independence in the United States was 1776, declaration, the fighting continued, and the Americans in the battle for Savannah were losing grounds. They lost a lot of people, lost a lot of men. The Haitians and the other Caribbean fighters, including Henri Christophe, came in and really were the determinant factor in the American victory in Savannah.
And that's the same Christophe who later became one of the leaders of the
Haitian Revolution. King of Haiti, and there was some dispute whether he was actually born in Grenada, but a recent historian that I've read, Marlene Daut, D-A-U-T, she wrote a book, The Rise and Fall of Haiti's King, Henri Christophe. She used primary sources to really verify that Christophe was actually Grenadian. So the point is, again, not to say that he was because he was from Grenada, but to show that kind of continuity, that kind of transatlantic continuity of the struggle for emancipation in this age where immigrants are maligned and this xenophobic current seem to be the norm in the United States, basically suggesting that immigrants contributed nothing, to the United States. Henri Christophe and the Haitian fighters stand out as an example of that, and so yes, I will have mixed emotions. I will recognize the fact that it's a big step, August 1st, and also recognize at the same time that it's part of the further process, a process for further emancipation. And I will also be thinking about reparations at this juncture as well.
Which we'll come to.
When will we be paid? And,
yes, which we'll lead into that discussion coming out of this.
Yes. So I'll rest my case at this point. Yeah.
Yes, but I just wanted to before, because I know all of you mentioned it, but in a sense to address even more specifically the role of our ancestors in obtaining their own freedom through the struggles, as Ideisha says, from on the African continent, and even when they were displaced here, continuation of that struggle, so as to render slavery as unprofitable venture, and ultimately forcing the hands of the enslavers to bring an end to that process. Because as you know, liberation is always a complex thing. There are always are different forces, different motivations at work and at play simultaneously. But I want to just focus on that part. Jomo?
All right. Well, when the colonial, the enslavers came to the continent, and they started coming in, the historians that started coming in like the 1400s, 1450. many of our people, they had a crisis in Europe. And because of that crisis, Europeans started looking for other places to go. And when they got to these other places, they got to Australia, they got to Indonesia, they got to the Americas, they swiftly killed off a lot of people, either because they brought alien illnesses which wiped out the population. In some instances, they did it deliberately. And in other instances, they simply engage in genocide. Particularly, there's some stories that say that before the Europeans came, there were about 200 million indigenous people. And that has been, the kill rate has been exponential, in that you now have less than 30 million indigenous people across the region. So once those were killed off, they started looking for other people, and that's how they got to Africans. But that resistance, as I said, and as I think all of us said, was fierce, because our people, there were certain languages in Africa that didn't know things. They didn't have no word for jail. They didn't have any word for that kind of oppression. There was nothing in the language that speaks to that. So when they were, the resistance to being taken was immediate and fierce. And if you go across the West Coast, from Angola in the south, with people like Queen and Zinga, all the way up to the battles of the Fulani people, the battles of the Hausa people, the battles all the way up the west coast of Africa, there was serious resistance. And like I said, when you read like Richard Hart's Slaves Who Abolished Slavery, and you read other texts, you get a feel that African people were always in the business of fighting. There was a fierce resistance. So by the time we got, if you look across the region, particularly in the 1800s, in Barbados, in Grenada in 1795, we had the Fidel Rebellion. In St. Vincent from 1763 to 1795, we had the two Garifuna Wars, led by Paramount Chief Joseph Chatelier, the only national hero in St. Vincent. In Jamaica, you had those kind of movements, those kind of resistance. And then certainly we had the triumph in Haiti of the Haitian Revolution. But this was not across the region. This was what was happening. In Brazil, you had the same kind of resistance and uprising. In Colombia, you had the same kind of resistance. In Paraguay, where they had, back then you had a much larger population of African people. It was only later that they had a conscious effort to swamp these countries with Europeans. For example, in Georgia, in the United States, at the time of the Emancipation Proclamation, you had more African people living in Georgia than you had Europeans. And what they did was to simply bring over Europeans to balance the population, the ratio in the population. But there had been that, you know the historian, you had him on your program,
Gerald Horn.
Gerald Horn writes about this story in many of his pieces, and he talks about this particular story in Georgia. But that resistance had always been there. And I think that, you get this, and this is why there's almost a trick to make us feel that our history began with slavery and that we accepted slavery, or that we were so happy. It's the whole Sambo kind of thing you see in all the American culture, that we were just grinning, laughing, fools when we develop languages. You know, we need the Grenadian patois, the Haitian patois, the Jamaican, all of that was languages to be able to communicate to our people in ways which the European could not understand. All of these are manifestations of resistance. So I think that for people to believe, and it was part of the colonial effort after the emancipation to make us believe, one, that we were nothing, we were nobody. So we ended up hating our faces, we hated our nose, we hated our mouth, we hate our sisters who had big posterior, we hate that. We were sexualized, that all we wanted is sex and nice time and grin and play. All of that was intended to turn us against ourselves. But the people resisted, the people understood. And if you put it in the United States, for example, you hear them talking about an African Methodist Church or African Episcopalian Church, because back then the connection with Africa was still real. In the Caribbean, in terms of the religion, the Santeria in Cuba, the Pucumina in Jamaica, the Shaker religion in Trinidad, the spiritual Baptist in St. Vincent. I mean, it's only recently I would realize that the spiritual Baptist religion actually had its origin in St. Vincent. Some of the historians went back and pointed it. But all of this was part of the resistance, part of rejecting what the Europeans had to offer. So it's an epic story, quite frankly, and one that our people should know. And I have always said, if we know our story, we would fly.
I just wanted to interject, Jomo, as well, because for us, many times we really get the sense that our history, our legacy started on August 1st, and we really have to commemorate the day, but we have to remember that we had a glorious past even before that. And we need to always highlight that we were never passive passengers in this slavery trade. There was always resistance from this inception, and some persons try to purport the idea that yes, there were many of our brothers and sisters who sold us into slavery. Yes, that was true. But still the blame solely rests on the enslaver's shoulders. Because many times if you're given a choice, your brother or you, most of us would have chosen their brother and stay for freedom. So from way back in the day, the plantation, before the plantation even existed, we were fighting, we were resisting. Across the ocean, we were resisting. And we must always remember as well the role of the woman. It was a terrible situation for both. But after my visit to Ghana and I saw the door of no return, which impacted significantly to understand, at least to some extent, the physical trauma that when you arrived at this point, you know that you are going into a land where you would never return. And to see the dungeons where they held our brothers and sisters, and even at one point where they showed us an exhibition of the filth that was piled up for many, many years on the floor, looking as if it's the floor, but it's actually, years of faces being piled on there. And seeing where they would batter off our sisters to the enslavers, you could get your pick, you choose whoever you want to. And those things still to this, they bring some level, I would say honestly, anger, frustration, to know that our forefathers and our foremothers had to go through this. And we must always be conscious to say, never again would we allow these things to happen. Never again should we see wickedness and allow it to persevere. Never again should we see the killing of our brothers and sisters and allow us to say no to violence, no to gun violence. That is one of the things that are coming out from the trauma that we faced. The Willie Lynch theory telling us that we must still not trust our brothers, not trust our sisters, pit ourselves against each other. The lighter skin one against the thicker lipped one, and the big bottom one against the no bottom one, and the stronger young buck against the older buck, instead of trying to work together to build a future that we all can live in and live happily. You understand? And these are some of still the remnants of what we went through and still happening today. You understand? It's easier for us to trust a lighter skin, Vincentian, Grenadian, Jamaican, than it is to trust a darker version of ourselves. You understand? And we really need to see that in many, many years after, way after slavery, we had all the banks and prestigious institutions, even the pageants, the lighter skinned people would still be the ones out at the forefront. So we need to really make sure that we don't keep carrying some of the remnants of slavery forward and forward and forward as we advance in today's civilization. You know, so this is some of the things that I still think we need to keep the level of education, political education, social education. You know, many times I would hear of the illustrious era of the Black Power movement, and knowing that persons like Jomo, young brothers who did extra well and keep to this day putting forward the education to the younger person, but many times even trying to host these activities in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to keep the level of consciousness, you find it hard to get young people who are very much interested and passionate about the things that we may be discussing here tonight. So I think that somehow there's a gap in our education system where we're not being taught enough. Some point, I hate to use the word, but we're not even indoctrinated in our own culture. You understand? We're not indoctrinated in our history to love and be passionate about our history, where we come from. You know what I mean? So I'm still really thinking that there's so much still we have to overcome on a daily. The struggle has not been ended on August 1st. We're still struggling. And as I said, our dear brother Oscar said, emancipation is still coming. Because unless we have the shackles of our brains being lifted, where we can really move forward in a holistic way, we still will be lost.
Yes, because a lot of what you're speaking about there is really enslavement in the mind, eh? Slavery
Very
in the
much
mind.
so.
And the lyric from Bob Marley, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. In recent times in Grenada, it has been used a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you wanna comment on that, including on the role of the federal, when I know the name Federal Rebellion, some people, including myself, refer to it as a federal revolution. And we speak of having 3 great revolutions in Grenada in the last 200 plus years, namely the Federal Revolution of 1795, the 1951 revolution led by Eric Gary, and the Grenada Revolution of 1979. I don't know if you agree or disagree with that description, Snowy, but you can comment on the impact of the Federal Revolution in Grenada and on slavery in general in the Caribbean.
I'm not one to take issue with our historian, because I'm not a historian. I'm a student of history, but I know that there are a lot of historians that are looking at this this rebellion differently, and so there is a contested view that, although, well, it's not a contested view. There is a view that although Fedon led the rebellion, that basically as the rebellion developed, he lost control, and it was mostly directed by the African enslaved, and that the Fedon was sort of, he had divided allegiance because he himself was a slave holder. And of course, at that time, that was the mode of production. And so if you had any amount of wealth, you normally would probably have had some enslaved people with you. But he immediately, upon the outbreak of the rebellion, freed his enslaved people from his estate in Mokwakwa, those areas where he had control. But anyway, just to put the Federal Rebellion in context, it was the most expensive rebellion that the British experienced, and as you know, from March 1795 to June 1796, they controlled the entire country except for St. George's. And it was only because of, the coalition of forces from neighboring territories, really massive reinforcement from the neighboring territories, that they were able to actually finally defeat Fedon. But the British, it took them many, many years to recover from the damage that was wrought in the wake of the rebellion. But there was an important victory after the Federal Rebellion that is often not recognized, the Amelioration Act, of 1798 came about right after the Federal Rebellion, whereby because of the dangers of rebellions like the Federal Rebellion and the Haitian Revolution breaking out again, that they put some strictures in place in terms of the excesses of the enslavers, the slave masters. So there were certain things that they did excessively in terms of punishment and the amount of hours worked and all of that were curtailed. Just a little bit back in terms of that quote that Bob Marley made famous, liberate yourself from mental slavery, number yourself and free your minds. This was a more elaborate quote that was paraphrased by Bob Marley, beautifully done, but it was really from the philosophy and opinion of Marcus Messiah Garvey. Garvey.
Yes, that's recognized also.
Yeah,
so
Garvey,
the point was being made even Grenada, Marcus Garvey had popularized in song
right
by Bob Marley.
Very, very well done by Bob, and it has become part of our regular discourse. But so that reclamation of our mental and physical space is something that is a project that we need to advance, renaming our streets, recognizing our streets in important places in our public sphere, and recognizing important, landmarks, like, for example, Market Square was a place where many of the captured rebels following the Fedon Rebellion were executed, including a Catholic priest by the name of Pascal Mantel, right? And we go through the Market Square and there's no sign or anything of the sort, no kind of recognition that I know of the martyred rebels in that area. So these are things that we need to. I know the revolution started some of this, and it was aborted, of course. This whole renaming process was aborted with the revolution. But it's something that I think that we should begin to.
But the Minister of Culture said in Parliament a few days ago that it is in fact something that is under active consideration, and not only under active consideration, but there have been concrete steps in terms of recommendations and so on and so forth.
Wonderful.
And that is something that they are committed to doing as part of that whole process of popularizing and recording and letting young people know of our history.
Yes, and the theme of the this year's the first August 1st commemoration is remembering our past, reclaiming our roots, and empowering our future. which I think is a very apt theme. And within that, I think it can encapsulate a very broad conversation on reclamation of our spaces, African appreciation, self-appreciation, really, and in terms of how can we use our rich history to empower, the present and the future.
Yes, and Snowy, I did hear you about the August 23rd. I recognize that, but the fact that I think a massive step was taken in Grenada this year to actually declare the 1st of August, Emancipation Day, as a national holiday. Before it, for many years, it was the first Monday. The holiday was the first Monday in August. And in fact, growing up, I was reflecting, the first August the first Monday in August, in my recollection, it was more connected with what at the time I was living in St. Andrews, and we more used to talk about races, horse racing. And there was never that real connection with the fact that it was Emancipation Day, the day the slaves were emancipated, the day, and that's how I will put it, the culmination of decades, and in fact, a few hundred years of resistance, the culmination of that in terms of the nothing in this life is pure, but in terms of the emancipation, liberation of our ancestors.
Absolutely.
So I think if you see it in that light, I can understand the 1st of August being the River Day and the Riviere Day, because the symbolism there is really it is a recognition, a celebration, a commemoration, culmination of years upon years of struggles, both on the African continent and in the Caribbean. How long as first of all, is 1st of August a recognized holiday in Vincent?
You're muted, Jomo.
You're muted, Jomo.
It is, I think, from 2002, the year after ULP got into power, it was changed. So before it used to be August Monday, because it was the first Monday of August that was celebrated. But recognizing the history, it was changed to be the 1st of August. Yeah. So that has been almost a quarter century now. We have been doing that.
This 1st of August and Friday coming will be the first time in Grenada's history that the 1st of August is actually the designated holiday. In fact, as far I say the first time, I'm almost certain it's the first time, but I was actually asking myself and searching myself that not even the revolution did that, Snowy.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I'm also wondering if that's actually accurate, but we'll see. That August, that is the first time we're celebrating emancipation on August 1st. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I know Jomo and Ideisha. I think St. Vincent and Antigua, right? They didn't really fully went through the apprenticeship process, right? Is that, I know Antigua for sure, but I think St. Vincent had to start and stop the whole apprentice system here. After 1833, the apprenticeship system began in most of the countries, but I think Antigua for sure not, and I'm not sure about St. Vincent.
If that's the case, I don't know about. If that's the case, I don't know about it. What I can tell you about that whole story is that for a whole host of reasons, St. Vincent had the shortest period of organize island-wide enslavement,
Mhm.
in that the British only gained control of the country in 1795 after, well, actually, in 1797, Paramount Chief Joseph Chatterjee was killed in 1795, assassinated in 1795, and the battle went on for another 2 years in the British control. But I am not so sure what happened if the apprenticeship period had gone for all of the 4 years from 1834 to 1838. I'm not sure.
Me neither. I can't recall reading. I know that we generally taught, and history books would have showed that in 1734, sorry, we got our word of mouth emancipation, and 4 years later when it actually came into effect. So I have not a proof otherwise that we didn't go through that period of apprenticeship. But as Jomo rightfully said, I know we had the shortest period of slavery, enforced slavery on the island, because we had some great warriors on the island who fought tooth and nail to keep the British off as long as they could. So, in our history, we must pay tribute as well to our natives, the Garifuna people, Joseph Chatier, for their role in keeping the British and the French, from really conquering and being in charge of the island for a very short time.
Yes.
Also, I just wanted to say real quick, with the Fedon Rebellion, sometimes too, we often miss the role of women in the rebellion, and women are not even often in the accounts, given due credit. But the fallout of the rebellion, once the rebellion was quelled, uh, many of the women were banished to Trinidad. Many of the women who were participating in the rebellion. I'm not sure if it was hundreds, but quite a bit of them. I think, um, it was noted that many of them were banished to Trinidad, and others were sent to Honduras, a British colony there. So again, in terms of the agency of women in these struggles, we oftentimes miss that. There are accounts that the women in the Fedon Rebellion played key roles in terms of intelligence, like passing information on, And
Mm-hmm.
one of the remarkable things about the Fedon Rebellion is how the amassing of forces leading up to the rebellion in 1795, how it was kept a secret, and there was no clue that this was happening, in spite of the fact that the British had retaken control of the French shortly before the rebellion, and there was a lot of cultural discord, cultural and religious discord between the two camps. Information was not leaked to the settler colonialists, and that's one of the remarkable things. But again, the role of women, I think we need to further uncover the role of women. We need to get the names of these sisters who were banished to Trinidad. I'm sure there's some kind of historical record somewhere that we can unearth. Those who were sent to Honduras, likewise. These are our heroes.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, if I could just say something quickly here about the role of women, and women continue to play. They don't get the prominent positions, but in terms of the serious grunt work, even in modern day politics in the Caribbean, women play critically important role in terms of organizing party groups, fundraising, and so on. But in 1790, I think it's 1793, there's a lady here called Nellie Ibu. Nellie Ibu was this lady she was enslaved on Mairo. And she and some other women decided, well, look, enough is enough. And that they were going to get rid of this overseer, this white overseer. And they decided to ambush him one day, and Nellie Ibu took a hoe and knocked him off his horse and killed him. And the other woman killed him. The enslaver had a brother in Grenada and the Grenadian brother was alerted, and he came over to St. Vincent, and then by the afternoon, Mary Ibu was captured. They immediately hung her, and 10 other women who they claim were part of this conspiracy to kill the enslaver were brought up to mainland St. Vincent, tried, and they too were also executed. So you had that situation. Then in 1935 uprising, you had people like Mortarbots and so playing crucial, important roles. So all through the history, I think, and I just want to echo the point that Martin is making. Women play crucially important roles. Don't always get the credit for it, but the role that they play are very, very significant and important.
Yes, and that
Jomo,
is
and even back in the day, from some of my early readings as well, we were taught that many of the women, so sometimes we see a woman today with all these fancy hairstyles, that they would have used the cornrow or the cane row as guided maps. So persons who are trying to escape could have used the hairstyle to know, well, there's a mountain over so, and there's a river so, and you cross over so. Um, so they will use the hairstyles and the designs in the hairstyle to be map replicas so that persons can use them to be guided. So yes, again, as a female on the panel, we generally find that a lot of the women go unnamed even throughout the history and the roles they would have played. But nevertheless, even unnamed or named, we should always remember that, the men fought alongside the woman. The woman played a very important role in the struggles, some silently, some overtly. You know what I mean? Some would have sacrificed their lives and continue up to today doing that struggle. So we must always remember the woman in the struggle.
yes. I think Dr. Curtis Jacob actually wrote a piece on that, and also Dr. Nicole Dow has written on that issue in terms of the role of women in the federal revolution, federal rebellion, federal uprising, however we term it. Someone has said that he would like you guys to discuss the role that religion played in enslaving Africans in the Americas and the Caribbean. Someone has raised that. I think well, the story is the story. That's a story that is known in terms of the role of the you hear you always hear the name Las Casas, yeah, being called, and his role in terms of suggesting that the natives were not capable, the indigenous people, and it is said that he was a leading voice in terms of looking for alternative sources. But there is another side of that side, because, and I would like to say, the role of spirituality in terms of the liberation of our people, because I know Professor Hutton, who was on this program at least on 2 occasions, and has written on the role of Obia that you spoke about, and voodoo in the Haitian Revolution. And he has written about the spirituality and the power of spirituality in terms of those liberation movements. So I think that's the flip side. If one may want to speak about it.
Well, evidently that's a dialectic. We know the story well, that it is said the Europeans came to the continent, they came with the Bible, they give us the Bible, and they took the lands and the riches. So that story. And then the region was always also used to make our people passive. That we don't have to bother now. all of the rewards are going to come in heaven. And it is instructive that people like Bob Marley rejected that. Bob Marley says, look, I don't want no pie, no sky, nothing. I want mine now. Yeah. And I think that it is important for people to understand that you want to have your whatever benefits you're supposed to have in life, you want to have it. But that religion played that role to keep our people down, to keep us in our places. The many parts of the Bible, you know, that just we used to justify the enslavement of African people. But I think the other point that you make, and I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, with the emergence of Obia and Voodoo and Santeria and Pocomania, whatever else it's called across the region, that people indigenized or sometimes brought over wholesale from the African continent, the religion and their spirit, their spiritual endowment to carry them through some of the darkest periods. And they had that feeling that no matter what we go through, we can survive. You know, I have a client, she has up this thing on like when we appear on Zoom in court, she has this quotation that she uses. She says, it says, the body can go through almost anything. We just have to convince our mind. You know, so when you watch some of the serious brutality, the rape, the torture, everything else, the bestiality, to break our men, and to, you know, you have people like Jefferson, who said some of the most horrible things about African people, but he felt comfortable sleeping and impregnating a black woman. You have Aisha, I don't know if you remember, Oscar had done a book where he talked about this white man who had gone across the region. He was like an overseer, and he took strict notes of all the different women that he assaulted across the region. You think about either 227 or 277 of them. The people had to survive all of that. You know, that they real, and it is the spirituality, it's the strength, the commitment to life. And you see it in even today, that our people, I happen to think that I'm not a very religious person, but I happen to think that there's a certain authenticity, even though some of it is corrupted now, in the spiritual Baptist movement, and the way they are able to go into themselves and to pull out a lot of powerful feelings and sentiments and actions that is it's like a kind of outer bodily experience that you see some people going through. I know some of it is some people may say some of it is make believe, and some of it may well be make believe, but you see there's a certain amount of authenticity that you see there that goes to the power of the spirit. So I think that clearly there's that, you know, religion being used for negative purposes, religion, spirituality being used for, even today, a lot of people through their poverty, through their difficult times, use religion, use their spirituality as an anchor. So we have to celebrate people wherever they are, and not to be condemnatory because people may support or uphold a view or practice that some of us don't agree with or don't participate in.
Well, Jomo's last sentence made me kind of have to rethink what I want to say, but then again, I have a serious issue with the fact that an idea of good of a supernatural being that we praise, that we worship, could be used to manipulate, to inflict pain and suffering on a people. And we know that is what happened with the invasion of the New World, whether being in Africa, coming to the Caribbean, going down to Australia, going into the Pacific Islands, wherever the enslaver or the modern colonizer went, they took with them their doctrine of faith and belief and taught to others that it was the way and the only way. No man cometh to me except through this way. Now, Africa has one of the oldest civilizations on the face of the earth. Even in the said Bible that they use, the Christian religion, and us as Rastafari use it as well, would have proclaimed of the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden would have been located where the River Nile runs, the River Euphrates runs, which we know that is in Africa. So if the Garden of Eden, the start of civilization, is located in Africa, then you would expect that African spirituality had some level of truth, level of right to it, and didn't need to be conformed or redefined in any way. So I would like to say that we all need to hold fast. So for example, if you're really from the East and you come up with a tradition of Buddhism, you hold fast, you show respect, and bring out the good in that. So to me, spirituality is supposed to bring out the good. And spirituality should show forth that each person wants the best for himself and the best for others. So my spirituality should make me feel that I am more than or less than somebody of another faith. And one of the greatest teachings of Haile Selassie is that we must live together side by side with men of different faiths, right? So I am saying that wherever you are, your spirituality, we should try to hold firm with it. You know what I mean? Show respect to others and try to be a better version of yourself each day. So I wouldn't want pain to be inflicted on me. I would not try to inflict pain on others. I would want my boys and girls to grow up to be great men and women. Then I should allow for other children of other faith to grow up to be great men and women. I shouldn't want to be killing my brothers and sisters in the name of religion. You understand? I should not want to be fighting against someone who looks like me in the name of religion. So that's how I think we should always try to see. Religion should be peaceful, respectful, and just try to see how much we can live together side by side.
Okay. Let's just recognize the sponsors of the program, and when we come back, I would like us to talk reparations. And the sponsors of this program are Gel Professional Solutions, Inc., Gem FM carrying this program on FM radio out of Canada, and Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, G-Town.
Attention all workers, your health and safety at work are critical. At Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union, we are dedicated to ensuring you have a safe and secure work environment. If you encounter unsafe conditions or are involved in an accident, take immediate actions. Report it to the company, your shop steward, and make sure it reaches your union. Your health and safety is a priority, and a strong union means a strong voice for your rights. Don't wait. Address concerns right away and protect your well-being. For a safer workplace and a better quality of life, stand with the Grenada Technical and Allied Workers Union. Together, we can create a safer, healthier work environment for everyone.
Yes. So Snowy, I think you were about to, in fact, earlier, and I told you we'll come to it on the issue of reparations.
Yeah. But I just wanted to kind of really quickly go back to the conversation on spirituality in answer to the person's question online. Just really quickly, I just wanted to kind of just recognize, that some of the religious oppression that we've experienced, are used to perpetuate the system of enslavement and domination, colonialism, and all of that. And a lot of the spiritual component of colonialism is based on white supremacist ideology. And when Sister Ideisha was speaking, you were talking about basically kind of like do unto others in sort of way. The Ten Commandments, that basically came from the African philosophy of Ma'at, the 42 laws of Ma'at, right? And when we read the Ten Commandments, we have no clue that it's part of our own cosmology, that came from the African experience, that was actually plagiarized and taken and placed in the Bible as part of the Ten Commandments. It's really the 42 laws of Ma'at, Egyptian philosophy, right? And concepts like Ubuntu were in existence like 44 BC, way before Europeans knew a thing or two about philosophy. Okay, so yes, in terms of reparations, connecting all of this. So the spiritual wounds that were inflicted on us, is really deep seated, and one of which are some of the symbols that are used in our public discourse and in our institutions. The oath of allegiance, I welcome that this is something that we no longer have to be insulted with upon swearing in of our elected officials and some of our civil servants. But there are other unfinished business, and I want to commend AIC and the committee that basically presented the case, including Dr. Alexis Ruggles Ferguson and others who presented the case of how we can actually avoid having to go to a referendum in order to make this happen. Another thing that we can actually do, I believe, without going through a referendum, and the learned folks here can probably advise me if I'm wrong, but it's that removal of that symbol on the Governor General's lapel. It's one of those things that is worn by most, if not all, of our Governor Generals, and it's an insignia of the Dane Grand Cross of the Order of St. Michael's and St. George that depicts the Archangel, St. Michael, trampling the neck of Satan. And in this case, Satan is a black person. So you see that on the lapel of the Governor General. And it's clearly a white supremacist, sort of spiritual enslavement shackle. And I think that is one of those things that we should seek to get rid of. We constituted ourselves as the Grenada Project 2050 in 2021, a group of us, at the 47th anniversary of the independence of Grenada, well, actually February 7th itself. We had a conference, in the middle of the pandemic, and we wrote at the end of this, we wrote a letter to the Governor General. And
I just want us to focus. We'll come to that part.
Yes.
The reparations issue.
Reparations. I was trying to get there through that, but okay. So I'll speed up a bit. Reparations is something that is dear to me. As I said, if I were in the post-slavery period immediately following the Abolition Act, I would be wanting to find out like my reparation. And to me, reparations is not just monetary reparations. Reparations is in this that we're in can look differently from just like the money that goes. We could.
We get some feedback somewhere. I don't know from. I wonder if is that from Jomo or Snowy?
This is all the time?
Ideisha is muted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jomo, it could be from you. If you're mute, let's see. Yes, no, you go ahead.
Yeah. So reparations is one of the unfinished business. Reparation can look differently. It doesn't have to be only be monetary. We really welcome the gesture by the Trevilians, who who was one of the rich aristocratic families that were involved in Grenadian enslavement, and I guess the gift of $100,000 to Grenada indirectly to Grenada, and I see this as a start.
Why you say indirectly to Grenada?
Like it was for an education fund, right? That had to be administered through UE.
Oh, UE, okay.
Yeah, and again, not something that I will not. But I think that probably the best thing that we can gain from the Trevilians' effort is for them to build a coalition of the other participants in the enslavement project that impacted our ancestors. Build a coalition of the Bank of England, the monarchy, and other rich aristocrats of Britain, and basically interface with the Grenadian people. And let's figure out how best they can materialize reparations. It doesn't have to be money, as I said. It could be building a hospital in the areas where, one of the 6 plantations that the Trevilians were part of, and the Bank of England and all these others were involved. They could build a hospital and basically upkeep that hospital for a number of years, right? It could also be a monument that is erected similar to what is being proposed in Barbados by the Barbadian government, whereby we can memorialize the enslavement period of our people. We can also have this as a resource center for studying this crime against humanity. We can try to repatriate, with their help, the documents that's pertinent to Grenadian history or that were taken away from Grenada, and archive it in that well-kept resource center. So reparations can look differently. Unless they reach out to the Grenadian people in our communities and have this conversation, I don't consider their effort to be true reparation in that sense, unless that's done. But it's a good beginning.
Okay. What's the approach in St. Vincent, Jomo?
Well, quite frankly, nothing is happening now.
Anything happened before?
When the committee was formed in 2013, I was made the chairman of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Reparations Committee, partly because we had from 2005 a St. Vincent and the Grenadines Reparations movement that was intended to bring issues of genocide and transatlantic slave trade and slavery into the public discourse. So we worked without a budget for all of those years between 2013 and 2023, when I was removed from the committee. But what we did was to go to try to build people's understanding, do educational projects, raise consciousness. We went to a lot of schools, churches, community development organizations, wrote things in the newspapers, and so on. And a lot of that took place over the 10 years that I was at the head of the committee. But I must say that the CARICOM governments must be given a lot of applause for putting on the agenda the issue of reparations as they did back in 2013. Because up until then, we know long before Rastafarian brothers and sisters had talked about reparations, repatriation.
Jomo, I was waiting to comment on a point of order when I heard you said the 2005 is when we started a movement, because I've been a Rasta for 30 years now. And from the inception of my getting into this movement, it's always been on our front burner. So I think it's from even earlier than that, the Rastafari has had this on the agenda and had a movement calling for reparations. So to say 2005, there was a reparation movement, I find it's gravely unjust to the Rastafari community.
Maybe I didn't speak delicately enough, but I wasn't intending to say that the movement started in 2005. What I did say is that in 2005, we had an organization called the St. Vincent and the Grenadians Reparations Movement. As I just said, Rastafarian brothers and sisters were talking about reparations and repatriation long before that. So I'm not trying to not give credit to our Rastafarian brothers and sisters. But yeah, so I think when CARICOM did it, before that, people talked about reparations, but it did not get the kind of currency that it has gotten since 2013. I remember there was a database in the year after CARICOM made an announcement. You had like about 100,000 different pieces of reparations type news across the world. And that was just in the year. So by 2014, that was the case. You had two reparations conferences, one in St. Vincent, and then one in Antigua, and then things have fallen off. St. Vincent, not St. Vincent the Grenadines, the Caribbean Reparations Commission has done a lot of work since then, but they really helped to bring it into the focus. And I think that here in St. Vincent, there's this whole talk about not only reparations for transatlantic slave trade and slavery, but reparations for the genocide which was committed against people from our country. In that when the British gained total control of St. Vincent, which the Garifuna and Kalinago people call Urumi, in 1797, they rounded up about 5,000, just over 5,000 Garifuna Kalinago people and exiled them. First put them on Baliso, which is island just off Beckway, and then put them on ships and sent them. They ended up in Rotan. And then many of them went to Honduras, Nicaragua, Belize, and so on. But the reparations movement, as I see it, is a movement whose time has come. I don't think we can put a cap back on that. We see many of the countries now, the Dutch, when President Rutte, or Rutte, however he pronounces his name, was president or prime minister of Holland, he did offer prime minister an apology, offered $200 million. I don't know. I haven't heard much happening with that. Remember back in 2016, 17 of the 21 persons who were condemned into the Democratic nomination for the presidency said they would be for some form of reparations. But the important thing is that African people are the only people who haven't gotten any reparations yet. You know, the Japanese got it for internment after the Second World War in the United States. The Jews got it. In fact, I was part of a case when I worked in the United States, where the Jews had brought a case, an attorney named of Ed Fagan had spearheaded that work. But they had powerful allies. If you remember, in 1990s, Bill Clinton had hired a top Jewish lawyer by the name of Eisenstadt to do the heavy lifting for the world Jews. Eisenstadt he gave him a cabinet level position and allowed him to roam across the world. We have not had that same kind of support. We have not had that same, but there's a lot of, the movement is growing stronger and stronger, more and more people coming on board. But I think that what needs to happen is for more young people to be brought into the movement. You have to find a way to bring young people into the movement. I think they're going to come because there's going to be that turn in international relations, international affairs, that makes it, quote unquote, sexy again for all kind of people, young and old, to pick up these kind of causes. We see it. Look at the transformation we are seeing with the with Palestine. I think there's an amazing contribution. Whereas I saw a statistic last week where it says that 10 years ago, 37% of Democrats in the United States were strongly allied with Jewish people. Today, 38% of Democrats in the United States are strongly in support and solidarity with Palestinian people. So you had the table completely turning around. I see that happening. I think, but it takes a lot of work. I have always said that the effort for reparations is not a sprint. I mean, I wish when Usain Bolt was running one of those epic races, he could have taken his shirt off and says reparations now. We didn't get him to do that. But we need the Gabriel Selassies of the world. We need the marathoners of the world.
And this was such an attempt made? Are you telling us?
Excuse me?
Was such an attempt made to get him to do that?
I remember in Antigua at the second reparations conference, Lisa Hanna was there, the PNP politician. And I raised the point with her. I said, look, you have to go back and get Usain Bolt, because she came to the meeting talking about, young people not attracted to it. I said, one of the reasons we get our young people attracted is to make our icons the face of it. So if we had Usain Bolt and all of the other great Caribbean athletes doing it, it would have gone, they probably would have gotten a list.
I just asked out of interest.
Yeah. Less sponsorship, they probably would have gotten up to that.
You don't know if that approach was ever made to him.
I don't know if the approach was ever. I don't know if it was ever. You remember there was the black athlete who played for Italy, I think, who every time he scores a goal, rip off his shirt. Why won't it be?
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things we.
And also the what's his name? I just forget his name. The footballer in America who, in a sense, popularized the kneeling for the anthem.
Right, Copenhagen.
Yes. That kind of symbolism is very important.
Yeah.
Ideisha, you wanted to say something on that reparations issue?
Yes. From my teachings of Rastafari would tell us we don't talk about reparations only, right? We have to also talk about restoration and repatriation. So, unlike my brother Martin, who said it doesn't have to be just financial, I think it's a complete package. We need finances, a lot of it, because you gained a lot of it from off of our backs of our forefathers. We need a lot of investment in infrastructure, whether it's hospitals, universities, etc. But then again, if you give us the money, we can decide how we're going to build those. I know there's always a concern of, if we do ever achieve getting Britain and Spain and France to acknowledge and apologize for the injustice that they've caused, then how do they apply the monies? And that is one thing I've always heard critics say, how would they disperse this money, and to whom would they disperse the money? And that is something we as CARICOM, we as the African continent, have to decide how these things would work. What are we looking for, budgetary support? Or are we just looking for a one-off check? But I think it's very, very important for us to make reparations an issue that is taught. Our history needs to be stronger in school. We need to get the persons from as early as 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 to understand slavery, understand the damages it inflicted on the African continent and our Caribbean and other parts of the world, right? So once we have the buy-in of the younger generation and they keep that that fire within them to know this wrong had occurred and we are seeking justice for this wrong, because people oftentimes keep telling you slavery was long ago and we should forget it. But at the same time, Britain still has all of the big diamonds that they stole and all of the great artifacts that they stole posing in their archives in Britain. So we must forget it, but you can go there and go and frequently visit and see all of these riches that they have amassed. No, we cannot forget it until there's equity, until the damage that was occurred have been repaired. So we want them to be repaired, and we want the wealth and the artifacts to be restored. We want the connections to our African continent as well to be restored. And we know that many African continents are opening up to say now, our children who are taken away, our grandchildren, you can come back. But we want more of the African continents to think of us as their descendants. And we should not have to get visa to return home. It's like you asking a Grenadian who wants to come back to go and take out a visa because they were forcefully removed or because they decided to live in another man's country for some time. So I think one of the steps for the African continent to do is to remove all visas for all African descendants, wherever they may be, right? And allow for safe repatriation for persons who are interested. I know many of them have done so. But I know of, for example, one of my sisters went when she was looking for her country to return to, she went to South Africa. She had a son in South Africa, and her son had never been given South African citizenship because she was illegal in South Africa. So her son had to claim her American citizenship because she was an American going to Africa, returning to Africa. So although he was born in South Africa, up to this day, he is not classified as a South African because his mother and father were not. And this is a young man just about 15 years old. So it goes back to not so long ago. And these things are still occurring now in the continent where many of us who decide to return because you're there and not having your legal status, your kids may not have the legal status until something significant is changed in the overall policies of these countries. So I see that the reparation cause, it's been on the burner. And as I said, as long as the Rastafari movement has been in existence and Black conscious movement, Jomo Thomas and the others from way back in the 70s, these were always issues that were being pushed. But we really need to get some of the younger generation, the sexy persons in the Caribbean, the skinny fabulous in St. Vincent, the jab singers in Grenada to come out and agitate for the causes, because I mean, I ain't want to call you guys old because old sometimes mature wine is good wine. But at the same time, four of us here already over 50. So we need to get some of the younger generation to come on board and agitate for the cause. You understand? Some of the young athletes, as Jomo was saying, the Shafika Maloney from St. Vincent, the Kirani James from Grenada. Let's get them on board. We may have to spend some time to educate them and encourage them to search for their identity and search for their Africanness and search for the connections between the current situations that they live in and what had happened in the past. So I guess some education still needs to be pushed tantamount to getting persons on board and getting persons to see this as something that is still very much worthwhile.
Yes, and of course, in the next few days in Grenada here, there will be a big conference. It's African, Caribbean, business and other people. We'll be having a massive conference down here, and small steps, but hopefully there will be fruits. And as far as I know, it's the government of Grenada is quite committed to trying to build back that connection with Africa. So that's a step in the right direction. But as regards reparations, I'm picking up three different trends. In terms of the demands for
Just before you go to that, I thought Martin would have come in. I want to make a point because Ideisha said that a lot of times we are told that slavery was a long time ago and we should forget it. I want to make this point because I don't think enough of us know it. When the British passed the Emancipation Act in 1833, accompanying that act was a decision to borrow 20 million pounds to pay off the enslavers, not the enslaved, the enslavers. And it is instructive that that 20 million pounds that were borrowed in 1833, the British only finished paying off that loan in 2015. And that 20 million pounds is, at the last count I saw, it was equivalent to like about $30 billion today. In fact, out of that 20 million pounds, enslavers in St. Vincent got like about $523,000 for those who were enslaved here. I saw Dr. Adrian Fraser, one of our more preeminent historians, saying in 2022, that $523,000, the modern day 2022 equivalent was about $22 million, 22 million pounds. So just so that people understand, when you hear we are being told, oh, this is a long time ago, it's just 10 years ago that the British government finished paying off the loan that it borrowed in 1833. I just thought that I would make that point before we proceed.
Yeah, I also wanted to make the similar point in terms of Grenada. $458,000 were paid to our enslavers. 615,000 pounds, but in terms of US dollars. But yeah, so that's salient point, Jomo. But the so I mean, even people who were, like 6 generations forward were paying this debt.
of that debt.
This is the bank loan that the British gave. The British government, got from the banks, and the enslavers were paid that money. So in terms of reparations, I mean, some people look at it as at the minimum that this is what should be given back as a minimum to these various countries. So Jamaica, 4 billion plus 4.5 billion. Guyana, 3.1 billion. Barbados, 1.2 billion that was paid off in terms of pounds. Trinidad, 760,000. And so on, and I mentioned Grenada
and that's based on what was paid
from Professor Vereen Shepherd, her presentation to the St. Lucia Reparations Commission, and she did that presentation in 2021. It's something that I often quote. I can share it with you, but it's
yeah, I would like to see, but I'm
saying
that figure is based. That figure is based on what was paid to the slave owners.
Yeah,
loss of their property.
The compensation, that was
right.
And the amount of claims and so on. In Grenada, there were 993 claims. In Vincent, 757 claims. The number of enslaved in St. Vincent for that 757 were 22,000. Grenada 23,000, and so on and so forth. So the list is there. The list is available. If we had time, I would share it with the participants. But I mean, in terms of like doing a screen share. But it's okay.
Yes, I would like to see the. I would like to, if you can just send the document. I'd love to have that.
I will.
Yeah, but my what I was saying is that in terms of approaches, I'm gathering that there's a general approach which is raising education and seeking to speak to the conscience of the descendants of the enslavers and the governments of those nations that were the principal enslavers, and in our case, the British, right? That's
and the
one.
French. And the French.
That's what?
The British and the French.
Yes, yes. In the case of the Caribbean as a whole, but in particular, in the case of the English-speaking Caribbean, the British, we speak of. And by English-speaking Caribbean, I'm speaking about those countries which were at the time of emancipation colonies of Britain. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, Jomo, we had Deirdre Farmer on this program here, and what I gathered from her, among other things, that they were seeking to proceed by way of identifying individuals who can be certified as descendants of slaves and seeking to have them bring claims in within the legal system. I'm correct on that?
Yes, yes. In fact, back in 2002, Deidre Farmer was a lead plaintiff in a reparations case, similar reparations case in the United States, where Deidre had gone back and done the genealogical research and found out that her people had been enslaved on certain plantations. She's Jamaican originally, but some of her people came from like South Carolina and so on. And she had gone and found that. And she became the lead plaintiff, and the case became known as Deidre Farmer against Fleet Boston, New York Life, Aetna, major banks and corporations in the United States. So yes, there's that one strategy for individuals to do it.
Right.
And
So
it became a class action suit because that same case was filed in different major cities in the United States: Boston, New York, LA, and so on and so forth. Chicago.
So my question is, given that among that data that you now pointed to Asnoi, with the amount of claims, for example, the 900 and something claims in Grenada. Yeah.
700 and 993, 773 in St. Vincent. Yeah.
993 claims in Grenada, 773 St. Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
You will have claimants, the names of the parties making the claim, not so?
Those were the enslavers, you know.
Those
I
were
understand.
money, yes, yeah, the enslavers. Yeah.
I'm talking about possible defendants.
Yeah. One of the things, Layne, is that slavery was very well documented in terms of the receipts for the money paid and that kind of stuff. This is capitalism, so that stuff is there for the records, and so that's So I'm not sure whether we're asking that, but yes, there was documentation of all of that.
Right, because so I'm just saying there is a database,
yes,
for a possible pursuit in the Caribbean, for example, in Grenada, of the process, Jomo, that was pursued by Deirdre Farmer and others in the US.
Well, I would think so. I'm convinced there is, because There's also that database also has the names of all of the persons who were enslaved
Yeah.
Exactly.
at that time.
So it should be possible to do a trace.
It should be possible. Yes, I think because the international legal architecture is so reactionary, we are probably going to run into the same kind of difficulties that the case in the US ran into, or
Namely
questions of
limitation.
right remoteness and so on. But as I said,
Remoteness in terms of time.
Time.
yes, in terms of time,
Mhm.
but because they just finished paying off the money 10 years ago, I'm not so sure how the remote argument would work now. Because it is funny, huh? The British Foreign Secretary, the Office of the British Foreign Secretary, I think in a celebratory mood, placed that up on its website and said, oh, the money has just been paid. We just finished paying it off, and then they realized that they made a mistake. So within a day, they pulled it down.
Yeah.
But people had already seen it and screenshot it.
Yes, and the third strategy is that being pursued by the Jamaicans with the petition that is supposed to be filed in the next few days.
Yes.
Namely that they have come up with a strategy of filing a petition under using the same act that was put in place to basically facilitate the former slave owners if they ever wanted to raise any issue with the king at the time. And the Jamaicans are saying that there is this what is referred to as the prerogative power to reform matters to the king and before it to the Privy Council. But what I found interesting, Jomo, on the program last week is that the brother there, the brother who was with us, our brother
Samuel.
Samuel, when he was asked the question why Jamaica was going alone, I understood him to say, well, their legal advice was that each state must go individually. And then it is only after all of these claims are filed that the possibility of consolidating them into one action would arise. But I gathered him to say that it is basically the responsibility of each nation and of the reparations committee, reparations commission team, however you call it, in each nation and their governments to really to push this matter. You understood him to be saying that?
That's how I understood him to be. That's what I understood him to be saying as well. I got to tell you, I have a little shade with that strategy. Yeah? I think it's very creative what the Jamaican brothers, our compatriots in Jamaica are doing. But I think that some more thought should have been given to, because we have a Caribbean Reparations Commission, and because we have a Caribbean Center for Reparatory Justice Research, Reparatory Justice. I believe we should have found a way that all of these countries, the English-speaking ones, because we have Suriname and we have Haiti in there. The English-speaking ones should have spoken in one voice and carry one case up to the Privy Council.
What Bud was saying that legally that is not possible. In other words,
But I don't understand why he's saying it's not possible though.
Because you are petitioning quote unquote your king. Each of these islands have always the same king, yeah.
Okay.
But each island has its own. Each island has to make the petition in their own right. There's nothing called it. We don't have a West Indian Federation. We have several independent islands that have the king as the head of state. So I understand.
Or maybe what they can do, and I don't want us to go up on that to kind of lose our audience, but maybe other countries can join amicus or something like that.
Well, I don't know, but all I'm saying that it appears to me.
No, I understand. I hear you.
And that activists in each island then has to bring pressure to be able to have that done.
To have their governments do it.
Yeah, because I almost got him to be saying, well, listen, Jamaica be sharing this information, be sharing this strategy all along, right? Mm-hmm. And they have gone ahead to do it. I don't know if that's the situation.
Yeah.
But that's just in terms of the approaches to me, along with the education, the advocacy within the various islands have to be stepped up. That's just by what I see. Well, the Jamaicans are doing fantastic, but others have to step up to the plate. Okay, so in terms of now, well, since 2015, 10 years ago, St. Vincent and Grenadians changed their oaths of allegiance, and they no longer swear allegiance to, in their case, Her Majesty, her heirs and successors. Since 10 years ago. Just recently, in fact, in the last few days, the Grenada Parliament passed legislation which will come into effect from the 1st of August, and there will no longer be a swearing of the oath to the King Charles, but instead, a la St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Belize, Jamaica, the oath will be sworn to Grenada. There are several things interesting about that, and that initiative was really led by a group of civic-minded persons referred to as the Citizens for Constitutional Reform, and it was led by the prominent constitutional expert and scholar, recognizing the region as one of the foremost scholars, Dr. Francis Alexis. And it is the first amendment to the Grenada Constitution by the Parliament in 51 years of independence. So that's the significance of it. So I don't know if Snow in particular, I know you started on it, I say we'll come back to it, but I don't know if you want to comment on it. And I know our Vincentian brother and sister would like to welcome us to the table 10 years too late. You are muted, Snowy.
As we wrap up, I'm not sure how much time we have, so I don't want to monopolize.
We just have a few minutes again.
Yes. I'll be really brief. I just wanted to point out that give credit to the people in Grenada. I'm far afield, and so I don't want to seem like I'm speaking like I'm in the middle of everything. But so I want to give credit to people like yourself, as I said before, also the Grenada Reparations Commission, and the Independence Committee, the Institute for People's Enlightenment. Really has a really an ongoing and very deep engagement in terms of popular education and engaging people in some of these issues that we have been discussing in terms of the importance of various aspects of our history. And one of the things that stuck in my mind from Caribbean history was a statement by Errol Barrow in 1966 upon Barbados' independence. He said, "My government will not be found loitering on colonial premises after closing time." And to me, the oath of allegiance and such things are, our steps to remove ourselves from the colonial premises, right? One of the things that came out of the deliberations in the parliament was the need to have more education on some of these issues, and the Institute for People's Enlightenment, have suggested some points that will help that process, how to consolidate and the opportunity to educate ourselves about emancipation and reparations. One, opportunities from the second decade of the of people of African descent, as dedicated by the UN. Two, the other UN international days, August 23rd, which is, as I said, one of the things that UNESCO has done to mark the beginning of the Haitian Revolution. March 25th, African Liberation Day. August 21st, the day for the people of African descent. All of these are dates that we can use, we can make these opportunities to educate our people and to commemorate with having forums and art competition, calypso competitions and things of the sort. Addressing and repealing the any pro-slavery laws, such as the criminalization of phobia, for example. And I understand too that Shango still has a sort of like, not Shango only, but Jab Jab. There's a sort of like a issue with Jab Jab in terms of its legalization. Something that I'm going to look at further. Obtaining and making available to all schools UNESCO series on African history. These are some of the things that the Institute for Popular Education and people like Peter Antoine and others who have been
the Institute for People's Enlightenment, you mean?
Enlightenment,
right.
Yes. Who have been
if I may, they have out there tomorrow.
Yes.
There's a webinar. The African struggle is our struggle, the African dimension of the Grenadian Revolution. And it will be a webinar, it will be virtual tomorrow. From, you have it there, no, you want to read it? Yes. If you can just advertise it.
Yeah. So it's, 1 second. So it's, the Institute of People's Enlightenment and the University of the West Indies Global Campus Grenada, the 2025 annual commemorative emancipation webinar. That's August 1st, just commemorating these dates, August 1st, 1838 to 2025, 187 years after. So it's going to be Monday, July 28th.
Which is tomorrow.
Right, at 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And that's, Atlantic time, Atlantic Standard Time. And
it will be via Zoom,
Facebook, Facebook, YouTube, all of that stuff. The theme, the African struggle is our struggle, the African dimensions of the Grenadian Revolution, and the keynote speaker will be Bright Gyamfi. Yes. So Forever Free, celebrating emancipation.
Yes.
These guys are doing awesome work in terms of that kind of enlightenment and
for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And also, I just wanted to mention too that July 20th, a few days ago, was the 100th anniversary of the birth of Frantz Fanon, the great Martinican, philosopher, social activist, revolutionary.
Yes.
So these are people that we should commemorate and respect in terms of the work the road that they have paved.
Okay. Okay. So any closing remarks, ladies first, once again?
Well, I must say congratulations to the Grenadian people for making this great step. As you rightfully say, we should no longer be lingering on colonial doors. And I mean, I know a few years ago we had the opportunity of even going a bit further, of removing the queen, king, and their heirs and successors from being head of state. But unfortunately, because our process was so politicized, that referendum did not succeed. But I'm thinking if we continue with some education, maybe we can do it in steps and stages, because we can follow suit Barbados and we can remove the head of state and remove the governor general's role, and have a president which is someone authentic, Vincentian, because we still play games with Emancipation Day, because I know um some years ago we did the swearing in of the governor general, which to me was a slap in the face, swearing in our governor general in St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Emancipation Day. And subsequent to that, we play a lot of politics with this day by having big celebrations that we would throw 500,000 plus dollars. Weekend coming up, we're going to have a big celebration here in St. Vincent for the love of cricket, throwing a lot of money at these events. But generally, I would let you know, us who do the work and trying to get funding, sometimes we get $3,000, if so much, to have an activity to host an African Liberation Day and Emancipation Day activity. But when we want to have a big fanfare, we would find a $500,000 budget and bring people from here, there, and yonder. But nevertheless, as I'm saying, I'm congratulating our Grenadian brothers and sisters for making this step. And hopefully we can join together and make more steps in the path of continually developing our states, our minds, developing with our people the love of our African self, respect for others, and see how we can move the next generation into at least being more active and vocal about issues that affect us directly and issues that we should not always politicize many times. So thank you for having me. Hopefully in the future I may share again on your program. But it was
Definitely, we
wonderful
welcome
to
you
be
back
here.
sometime.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Brothers Jomo, Brothers Snowy either.
Well, I just want to say one thing. I want to join Ideisha in saying it's really good to see our Grenadian brothers and sisters, Grenadian nation, moving past that colonial, getting rid of that colonial relic where we were still paying allegiance to the king, the monarch, and his heir and assigns. But I want to make one point about reparations. I want to reiterate the point that Ideisha raised, which is the quote from Oscar, that emancipation ain't reached yet, emancipation is still coming. That's one point. And the other point I want to make about reparations is this. A lot of people have said, and I believe that a lot of people are convinced that the moral argument for reparations has been won. That people say, yeah, everybody. But I don't agree with that. I think it's far from having been won. Because for that moral argument to be won, which would take us to the next stage, white people have to understand that they got a benefit as a result of the enslavement and dehumanization of African people. And not only did they get it and have lived it for so many decades and centuries, but to make the world a better place, they may have to give up some of it or all of it. And I don't think that white people are at that stage at this point.
Snowy? You're muted,
The mic is
Snowy.
still mute. The mic is still mute.
You're muted,
Brother
Snowy.
Felix, the mic is still mute.
Sorry about that. Now, I was saying that what I said before, I think constitutes a conclusion. And I don't want to take up any more time, but I just wanted to just inspire us all, to be part of that concerted resistance that found expression in the Brigand Wars, where we, from St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada and other territories of the Eastern Caribbean, we had this Republican fervor, to fight against the crown and to advance the Emancipation Project. And I think it's important for us to see ourselves the way that the imperialists and the colonials saw us, as one. And doing things in isolation really only weakens us, right? And so, with that in mind, I just say, thanks all.
Okay, thank you all. And I want to really thank the sponsors once again. Jail Professional Solutions Inc., GMFM, GTAO, Grenada Technical Iron Workers Union, for allowing us to carry this program. I want to thank you, Ideisha, Brother Snowy, Brother Jomo. And I want to thank those who have viewed this program tonight. It is the last program in this first season. We are into the carnival now and we break for the carnival period. We start back the first Sunday in September. We had every single scheduled program was carried out this year. Last year we were interrupted by the hurricane. Thankfully this year we don't have that issue. And it's really our pleasure delivering and having these educational sessions, which are quite fruitful. We have received lots of positive feedback and commentary on the nature of the program. And we really want to thank those who view, those who share in different ways. And we see you again in September. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.